What's up, party people? Peep hall. We'll let the peep hall get logged in. I'm going to change my blade because that's essential. Step 1, razor hair cutting, new blade. So, my name is Lucas. Lucas Doney from San Diego, California. I'm an international trainer and artist for John Paul Mitchell Systems. And we're going to talk a little bit about some post-quarantine haircutting today. I want to take a quick second to thank Paul Mitchell for allowing me to do this kind of stuff on behalf of the company. I'm completely humbled by the opportunity to do that. And then thank you, Hairbrain, for letting us do this from the living room. I feel like my living room has gotten to be pretty well known during quarantine because I feel like we're always filming here. So once again, my name is Lucas Doney. I'm going to go through kind of maybe some scenarios you may see as you come back to work. You know, clients coming in, letting their hair grow. A lot of them may want to hang on to that hair. So we're going to work through a little bit of a shape that we're able to keep a lot of the length, and we're going to choose to use a razor as a different tool so that we can kind of get like a little bit of refinement and space put in the hair as we cut it so that we can go through it one time for a little bit more efficiency. You could probably see more clients that way. I know that everybody's going to be rushing back to the salon. So we'll talk about kind of the decision making and the thought process as we work through it. I encourage you guys to share the video, share it on your page, send it to your friends. Clinton Norris, my good friend and quarantine collaborator partner, is on the camera. So if you guys have questions, he's going to be reading them off. But yeah, questions, comments, contributions, everything is welcome. Feel free to ask away. That's what we're here for. So we're more than happy to kind of share what we've been up to, what we're doing, and then specifically what we're going to work on today. So
you got a lot of people saying hello from Mexico, South Africa, whoa, Germany, Oahu, Texas, and a lot of people saying hi.
Texas is your roots, man.
Yeah, it is.
So I know that for me, being in San Diego, I'm going to have a lot of clients coming back to the salon with some long hair. They're going to, they've probably let it grow the entire time they've been on quarantine or house arrest or lockdown or whatever you want to call it. But I think a lot of them are going to want to hang on to some of that hair because maybe it's reached a point that they've never thought they were going to get to. So I'm going to go through this shape as if someone has let their hair grow during their quarantine time and they want to keep a lot of the length, but they want to make it look more intentional. So that's my goal today, is to make the long hair look more intentional. I'm going to use a razor because, like I said earlier, I want to make sure that I'm able to put a little bit of space in the hair as I cut it in a wet relationship so that my refinement and post personalizing and things like that is minimal, and I can kind of get it done in a more efficient manner. I'm going to use an unguarded straight blade. We'll talk about a couple of different strokes as we go through, but this is going to allow me to put more space in the hair, like I said, so it's a bit looser. And on long hair, it looks really, really nice. So, your client comes in, they've let everything grow out really, really long. They've got nothing going on. I want to make sure that we have some things that look intentional. So I've taken a diagonal back section on each side, about that first inch of the hairline, and I'm going to work on that first because that's what's going to frame their face. So for me, I want to make sure that I choose a length and a shape that sits well and that I'm able to make look intentional around the face while maintaining a lot of length. So I'm going to start right in the center. Now this is going to give me a clue as far as my choice of length goes. My choice of length on a mannequin is going to be just past the chin and a little bit of a layered shape around the face. So this is the end result that we're going to end up with. We've got a cooking show, so we've got one that's like pre-done. And we'll talk about that end result here in a little bit. But that was the same exact mannequin. Just decided to have one pre-done so that you can minimize how much you got to watch me blow dry hair, because that's never awesome.
Still got a lot of love coming in from Cyprus. Anthony Edge is watching.
Oh, yeah.
We got some love from the UK,
Anthony,
from Malta.
We're making your video too today.
Yes, we're making a video for Anthony Edge today as well.
So what I'm going to do is, in order to give this a little bit of history and a little bit of movement, I'm going to turn this way so that you can kind of jump in the side if you need to. Okay. I'm going to find my choice of length, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to elevate that hair straight out from where it lives, so almost flat like a board. I'm going to take my razor and I'm going to use just the corner of it to put a little bit of space in this hair. It's called tipping. So very lightly I want to take some of the weight out. Now I have less hair to cut through, and I'm removing some of that weight so it makes it a little bit easier. Now I have less. I can come across, and come across the other way. Now the more I move my blade, the more space I'm going to put in the hair. Now the tighter or the less you move your blade, it's called a closed stroke. So a closed stroke will look something like this, a lot smaller movements. The cut would end up being closer to like a scissor, where something that's more open, I'm going to move the blade a little bit more. So from here, I'm going to have like a little bit more movement on my blade. More of an open stroke, so the hair that comes off is a lot looser. Spin this around so you can see. On this side, let's talk about the elevation. I'm pulling the elevation to the same point in space. So a lot of that hair from the side of the head is being elevated up and over-directed forward. So that's allowing me to preserve a lot of length and density moving away from the face. So clients that want to hold on to their length, they want to have those options. This is allowing me to do that. So a little bit more of an open stroke. Now, as you can see, even with the hair wet, we've cut a face framing shape around here. By pulling the hair straight out and using the hairline and the roundness of the head, it's allowed us to create a rounded shape like that. Now, I'm going to drop down my next section. Now, my guide is going to be stationary. So what I mean by that is everything is going to come to the front. So create that little division point just behind the ear. Comb that hair forward. Any of the hair I'm not working on, I'm just keeping nice and groomed and clipped away.
Got lots of love coming through, lots of thumbs up, lots of hearts.
Hearts and thumbs ups.
Yeah.
All right, so let me get this section in here.
What would you potentially change if they had a different hair density?
So yeah, texture and density comes into play, especially with humans, right? Mannequins are pretty standard, hair sewn into the head. We've kind of managed that head shape and that texture for, the entire quarantine, right? So for us, I know for me, when I start to look at how this translates to a human being and what decisions and what factors change my thought process on a human, if they had a lot more texture and density, like very dense, thick, heavy hair, maybe I lift the hair a little bit higher. Or maybe my stroke is a little bit more open. If they have less hair, maybe a finer fabric, maybe my elevation is lower and my stroke is a little bit tighter or closed. That just helps preserve density and length. Because if their hair is finer, I want to make sure that I make it look and feel thicker. If their hair's thick, I want it to look and feel a little bit lighter. So elevation is my friend. Those things come into play, but I want to make sure that I keep those in mind as I'm working. Yeah?
Love it.
I'm going to do this. Watch. Did it change it?
I don't think so. Maybe.
We're multitasking here. All right, so now I've got a stationary guide. I can see my hair that I've cut underneath. If I can't lift it up, I can see where that hair starts to come through. There's my choice of length. I need to make sure I get just past that length. So what I'm going to do is I'm still going to use the corner of my blade to take some of the weight out of this before I choose my length. Now, as I look, I've got more space in there, and I'm going to just go from underneath so that I can show you. Open stroke, a bit longer.
That one's longer than the first one, correct?
Yeah, definitely. So as you see, it's very soft. The cutting line is very soft. So it's gonna have a lot more space in that hair. Once again, flat out, straight out from where it lives. A little bit more of an open stroke. Still making sure to have that little bit of that rounded shape around the face. Now combing all this hair forward, holding it horizontally. So I have a strong elevation and a strong over direction. Open stroke. Right through there. Now I don't slide my fingers too much as I work. The reason being is because I want to control the hair. So I'll allow the razor and my choice of length, or excuse me, my choice of elevation, my choice of over direction to help create the results I want. If I start sliding a lot, then in turn I'm gonna have hair that gets like longer towards the end of my section, just like over direction and things like that. The neighbor's dog's on a good one.
I know. Girly Medina, I believe that's how you say your name. She says, how do you choose where you tip to take the weight out?
That's a good question. So where do we choose to use a tipping technique? Now, if I comb this hair, it's very dense and solid, scalp to ends. When the ends of the hair, there's a lot more space. So to me, I would want to work through this just lightly to make sure that it didn't feel or look too thick as I started to work through it. And you'll start to develop an awareness in your fingers as far as what the hair feels like as I pinch it, if it feels thick, you know? But once again, you're gonna have a certain degree of like heaviness and thickness with this haircut because the guide is stationary. So the hair is gonna get longer and heavier as you work. But we are looking to create that little bit of a face straightening effect there. So now, I'm going to split the back directly in half. Now because this hair, and on a client, choice of length is the big thing, make sure that you're choosing a length that allows you to keep what they want in the back. Now I'll split this down the center and I'm actually going to pull everything all the way to the front. Now what that's going to do is going to preserve almost all the length and density towards the back. So it's going to allow me to kind of have that longer shag, layered kind of shape. And because this hair is traveling the farthest, means it's going to be the longest and the heaviest, which we'll assess here shortly. But I want to split that down the center. And I'm going to move my body position all the way back to the front again. And I'm going to wrap this hair to my stationary guide in the front. So combing that hair all the way around the head. Now I'm using the roundness of the head to wrap the hair around. I don't want to comb it up and over. I'm just wrapping it around the curvature of the head, right from where it lives. Straight forward, my guide starts to drop out. Open stroke. Now, that's going to put a little bit of space in the hair. I know the hair's traveling forward, so I'm maintaining a lot of length and density towards the back. Once again, if I plant my feet where I need to be, I can comb all this hair forward, right to that same point, elevate it up flat, use my razor, coming across the hair, not on top. I want to come across the hair and remove those smaller lengths. Now I'll have something that's longer in the back, shorter in the front. We get to this side, once again wrapping it around the head. We'll go this way. And coming across. Trying to stay out of the way for you.
You're good.
So traditionally I would spin my client away from the mirror so that I could stand directly in front of them to make sure that this is balanced left to right. So not much length has come off for the exception of what's around the face. So now as we work, I'm going to go through and I'm going to layer the back. Now, what we've done is that we've chosen to pull that hair forward, which, like I said, is making the back longer and heavier. So a traditional round shape, depending on where you went to school or what system you learned with, traditionally a rounded shape, shorter in the front, longer in the back. A lot of what you see nowadays is a variation of like a layered shape that's shorter in the front, longer in the back. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to look to balance the front and the back. Because I haven't necessarily layered anything in the back middle is going to be very, very heavy. So we've cut a haircut that's pushing all the hair backwards. It means all the weight's off the face and it's all moving backwards. Now, behind the ear, everything behind the ear, we have way more hair than we do in front. So in the back, I'm going to actually choose to layer the hair so that it wants to push forward. What that's going to do is it's going to create a haircut in the front that pushes backwards, a haircut in the back that pushes forward, and all the hair is going to meet right over the ear, where it's the weakest point of the hairline. So that's going to give us a little bit of benefit there to make sure that we preserve that length and density over the ear so that we don't get any like holes or things like that.
Jennifer Tuhig Williams says that she loves a good.
4 names?
Tuhig is a hyphenated Williams.
Okay, got it.
Jennifer Williams.
Jennifer Williams.
Yeah, so Jennifer Williams said, is this cut typically starting in the fringe area? And maybe if I added on to that, when would you choose to start in the fringe area or when would you choose to start in the back?
Okay, good question. So the question was, is this a haircut that you typically start in the fringe area? Not necessarily. I did in this particular situation because I'm thinking about a client coming in that maybe had some layering around the face beforehand, has spent the past couple of weeks letting it grow out, locked in their house, whatever that looks like. So I did choose to start in the front because I wanted to determine what was happening around the face. So that tells me I can make sure that that shortest layer is here, that shortest layer is here, that shortest layer is here, whatever the case may be. Now, if they had existing history in the back that you wanted to connect short to long, I would start in the back. So based on priority and practicality, right? Is it most important to frame the face and get that looking awesome and keep a lot of the length? Or is it most important to connect an internal length to an external length? That's when I would change that. So if they wanted to connect a short layer to a long layer in the hairline, they wanted to connect these 2 points, I would start right here in the back and cut short to long. But if they wanted to frame their face, then I would start in the front. So it just depends on case-by-case basis.
Priority.
Yeah. What's most important to the client, and then what's most important to you as the hairdresser.
Jennifer, I hope that answered your question. Chandra, she also has a question. Is it true that when you use a razor, it's harder on your hair? An instructor once told her that, and she was just wondering if it's true. We're like debunking some stuff right now.
Yeah, it's like Mythbusters.
Mythbusters.
So,
Chandra.
Good question. So the question was, is a razor harder on the hair, or is it more damaging? No, I don't believe it is. I think that if it's used improperly, it can have a negative impact on the hair. Or if the blade is dull, or if you're not really you're unsure on how to use it, yes. But that goes with anything. You could do that with scissors. You could do it with thinning scissors, softening scissors, clippers, a broken beer bottle, a hatchet, a blowtorch, a sword. It doesn't matter. I think as long as you understand what the tool is and what it's intended for and how it's best used, it can have a very positive effect on the hair. So I think when used improperly, yes, I would say your instructor is correct. But when used properly, I think that it can have a very beautiful effect on hair, especially something like this. Real quick, I'm going to talk about this. I took a central section from the high point of the head to the center nape. So this is in the center in the back. I have an existing choice of length at the top here that actually got cut in the front. So that's going to be my choice of length in the back, and what I'm going to do is cut short to long. But also I want to be mindful of density. Now, I only know this from experience, but on a mannequin, and some of you may know this as well, there's lots of hair sewn into the top of the head. It's where the most of the hair is. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use a tipping technique on the top in the crown area where there's a lot of hair. So this could be very useful with somebody who has a lot of density, things like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to comb this hair all nice and neat, all nice and organized. Everything's organized from scalp to ends, and you can see how thick this hair is. Like you can't see my comb through it, it's so thick. So what I want to do is I want to put some space in there. So I want to make sure that I hold the hair in a way that I can actually lay it all flat. And I'm actually going to use the corner of my razor, and I'm not moving my entire body, I'm really just moving my hand or my fingers that are holding the tool. And I'm aiming it towards the densest part of that section. Now I've created a little bit of space, you can see my comb through it a little bit more. I'm going to do the same exact thing just on the other side here. So I get both sides of this section, especially in this crown area, especially in the center on a mannequin. This is where it can get really kind of quite heavy. But by using the corner of the blade, it allows me to really, like, with minimal impact and minimal effort, really like release a lot of weight out of that hair without having a visible cutting line. So now I've cut that section so it's just less hair.
We have people saying hello from Pakistan, which is great. From Trinidad. And our viewer from Trinidad, she wants to kind of know the first step in creating the shape. She missed it from the beginning. So maybe just a quick recap as you cut that first section.
So what I did, recap the whole thing, you think?
Just like a condensed little Clip Notes version.
So, okay, in the front, I took diagonal back sections that followed the hairline. So I singled out just the hairline. And what I did is I actually chose the shortest length and I cut short to long. Now what I'm doing is same principle in the back, but I'm using vertical sections. So in the front, I pulled everything forward and I cut it short to long. So all that hair had to travel really far and in turn created this little bit of a rounded shape. So shorter in the front, longer in the back. Now in the back, I'm going to do the same exact principle, thought process, but I'm going to use vertical sections with a stationary guide in the center. So I'm creating a haircut that's shorter in the front, pushes weight towards the ear, and something that's shorter in the back and pushes weight towards the ear so that we're saving all the hair on that weakest point of the hairline.
Then did you or do you prep hair with anything before you use a razor? Like
question.
What people would call a cutting lotion?
Cutting lotion. Your best friend when you're cutting hair with a razor is moisture. It's going to allow the blade, especially if it's not a new blade, to glide through the hair a little bit. So anything like a leave-in treatment, I love, like Paul Mitchell makes Awapui Moisture Mist, which is a great lightweight leave-in conditioner. It's a spray, so it goes in evenly distributed. That's one that I love for cutting hair just in general. But also, it just depends too on the hair type. If you have hair that's a little bit tough to comb through, what I would suggest is use a little bit of a light cream or a light conditioner or a detangler, something like that, that allows you to comb through the hair a little bit easier and allows like slip. You want to have some slip, especially when you're working with a razor, just because it helps the comb get through and it helps the razor get through. Because when hair's dry, that's when you can kind of rough up the cuticle a little bit, as we spoke about earlier. It can have a negative impact on it. But when it's wet, it's a little bit more slip and slide, so you get a nicer cut as you work.
Sally Ann Brown Carr says that she says it's a fantastic shape and she loves it. And then we have a viewer from Egypt as well.
Whoa.
Yeah, saying hello.
That's cool.
Yeah. A lot of people from all over the world watching right now. It's great.
That's so cool. I hope everybody's healthy. I hope everybody's well. Loved ones are well. So through here, same thing. I can see my guide through my sections. Less and less hair to cut as I move forward. So I'm essentially using a stationary guide in the back as well as a stationary guide in the front. And that connection point or that overlap is all the hair that's above the ear because that traveled forward and traveled backwards. So it's the longest part of the haircut.
Now, you do a little more razor hair cutting than I do. Or 100% more razor hair cutting than I do.
I'm good at cord.
Yeah. I have a good reason to believe that you do more.
To believe that, yeah.
So Can you talk about tension? Like when I'm holding hair like this, if I were to be cutting this, I would be cutting on the inside of my hand. The actual tool that's making the action of the hair coming off is actually on the inside of my hand, or this is on the other side. So we're working with different. Your hair has tension on it right now when you're placing the blade, whereas mine doesn't. Do you want to speak to maybe how you make those choices or how that can impact the end result?
Yeah, it's interesting because when you cut hair with scissors, you're cutting the hair that's like beyond your fingers, whether it be on the outside or the inside. It's like uncontrolled. Where when you cut hair with a razor, you're cutting between your hands and the head. So you're actually cutting the hair that's like stretched tight. In regards to tension, a lot of times people ask like, oh, how much tension do I use? And everyone has their own opinion about it. I don't know. I mean, if you can explain it, I think you're correct. For me, like when I use tension, whether it be with a scissor, whether it be with a razor, I use enough tension to control the hair and try to make sure it's consistent. That's my goal. Try. Keyword try. But yeah, you do want to have a good amount of tension, and I'm also, you notice that I comb the hair a lot more. It's a lot easier with scissors if you didn't, here, I'll just do this way.
Yeah, you're good.
It's a lot easier with scissors if you don't get the section combed and you cut it, you can recomb it and cut the hair you missed. With a razor, it's actually really difficult to do that because you have to have enough hair to hold it in your fingers, so you can't like dust it. You know, you're not gonna like dust it. You have to have a substantial amount. You know.
That's why I see people like pinch and grab and.
Yeah, like pinch it with their fingers and things like that. So there's reasons why you would choose different techniques, but for me, I want to make sure that I have consistent tension. So I always look if hair starts to drop out, if I start to lose control, like down here, I started to lose control. I saw my finger slide like that. I'm gonna recomb it and make sure that I hold that hair that I'm cutting, let my guide drop out, but hold the hair that I'm cutting. So I think that tension is super, super important. And like I said, it's interesting because you're cutting the hair between, you're cutting between your hand and the head instead of completely on the outside like you would with scissors. So it is very different, but you know, I think that the more we understand it and the more we can kind of explain it and have a relationship with it, it just makes us a little bit more versatile as hairdressers.
There's also like a misconception that razor hair cutting is just like sloppy.
Yeah.
Which it's not, you know, like looking at people like Gerard or Nick Arrojo, and even yourself, you're doing like technical hair cutting with knowledge and skill, you know, to be able to create the end result that you want to create with your choices.
And I think that was the thought process I had when I was younger was anybody who cut hair with a razor did it because they couldn't do it with scissors.
Yeah.
That was my thought, you know, and I was naive and I didn't know, I didn't understand. But then the first time you see somebody approach it in a technical way and have a really good understanding of it, there's reasons why they make certain decisions and they can talk you through that. Where I think that maybe my first exposure to razor hair cutting was somebody just going crazy. You know, like in the early 2000s, just going wild. Where for me, I'm like, oh, somebody actually approached it with like sectioning and discipline, and this is the cause and effect of what's going to happen, and all those little things are so important that if you aren't mindful of those, then you are that person that's just winging it. You know, you're whittling away till you get to your shape.
You would do the same thing with a scissor.
Yeah, yeah.
We haven't.
No matter what you're using.
Exactly. How you do anything, how you do everything.
Yes.
No matter what tool's there. So Angela Kim asked me, how often would you see this client for a haircut? So if this is, you know, and then I think this is maybe there's a second question on that as well.
Yeah.
How often would you see this client? And then when they came back in, the fact that you're creating a lot of space like that, would you recreate the same haircut time number 2?
Question. Yeah.
That's
so
fine.
how often would they come in? Let's handle that first. Great question, Angela. So how often would a person want to come in to get a haircut? You know, like when would they need to? And I'm a huge advocate of having my clients come in when they feel like they need a haircut, especially longer hair clients. I want them to make sure that they're enjoying it. You know, I don't want them to come in just for the sake of coming in. You know, if they have long hair and they like it and it's still working, then wear it for as long as possible. But, you know, given the certain course of events, I would say that my long-haired clients are closer to like every 8 weeks, if not longer. 8 to 10 probably on the long-haired ones. And that's just preference. You know, some go longer, some go less, but texture, density, hair type, what they can manage when they feel like it's not styling appropriately, then they'll probably come in. Second part of that question is, you know, if we cut it with a razor and put tons of space in here, is that something we do every time? And that's a very good question. The answer is no. If this client came back in and like, oh my gosh, my haircut's working great, but I just feel like the ends are a little straggly, then maybe I need to come in with a scissor and put a stronger outline in it and be done. Or maybe I need to go through and I need to technically put in a stronger shape so that it's a balance between how loose it is and how strong it is. Because we all know, for me in Southern California, if I have a client, maybe they're blonde, maybe we cut their hair this way, and then they wear their hair for a while, there's a certain bit of erosion that happens, right? Blonde hair cuts itself. So I might not need to come back in and put loads of space and texture in their hair. I might need to put a little strength in there so that it kind of resets it, brings it back. So a lot of times I'll note on my client's account, razor haircut, scissor haircut, razor haircut, scissor haircut, so that I can keep track when they come back in. I'm like, oh, last time we cut it with a razor, how was that? Cool. I think this time we should cut it with a scissor because of the reasons I just shared. It needs a little bit more strength, it needs a little reset, it needs a little bit more structure, and next time we'll make it a bit looser. So as long as that communication is there with your clients, I think that all of them are like really receptive to it. But absolutely, that's a good question. Yeah.
Perfect.
I'm just going to cut the length here now. So I'm going to hold it in my fingers, and I'm going to hold it tight. One little tip for razor hair cutting is if you take your thumb and you press it on your index finger, you can hold on to that hair tightly till you cut all the way through. Now, I want to talk a little bit about this. The tendency for a lot of people that maybe don't have a relationship cutting hair with a razor is to put the razor flat and scrape the hair.
Let's look at that from the side. This is the wrong way, right?
Yeah, this is like, this will rough up the cuticles. So for those that asked earlier, this will really make the shape like really fuzzy, almost feel burnt, you know?
That's how you shave your legs.
Yeah, yeah. So what I suggest is always like, okay, now I'm going to pinch it, I'm going to hold it. This is where I want to cut it. And I'm going to take my razor across so that I'm cutting hair and I'm not scraping it. So that I actually physically cut through and I'm not just shaving it, you know? Now, straight back here, go just past my guide, let that fall out. Once again, come across the hair. And you'll find that like there's a certain structure or a certain angle that this blade needs to come across to cut hair. A lot of times if you're using a razor, and it's not cutting through the hair, it's not cutting through the section, that just means that maybe the razor is too flat or too perpendicular. So there is this sweet spot, and the more you use it, the more you'll realize it and find it, is if I come across and cut through the hair rather than scrape it, the end result's gonna be really, really, really enjoyable, and you're gonna like the outcome a lot better. And so is your client, right? So a little trim on the outline, but what we did is we created something that sits off the face, kind of like that modern-y shag kind of feel, like a little bit more layered, but still really, really long. So if you have a client that's coming in post-COVID for their first haircut and they've reached a length that they really enjoy and they're like, man, this is fun, this is cool, then for me, I would approach it that way. This is kind of our finished result here.
Jade says your control is incredible and your cameraman is killing it.
Cameraman is killing it.
It's not an easy job.
It takes a village, you guys.
Yeah, not an easy job.
It takes a village. So with this one, I just put, salon reality style on it, a little bit of a blow dry and a little bit of an iron, just like you would in reality. And you can see through the back, I don't have a lot of visible layering. It all falls kind of like a bit of a waterfall, so you're not necessarily invested into like a lot of strength going this way. And I still have a lot of length on it. Putting that little bend on it, a little bit of a style, so it sits off the face, gives you a nice end result. Also, something really easy. And using a razor, like I said earlier, just to recap, put this here. For those that tuned in after we started. So when I started this haircut, I started with a diagonal back section that went all the way ear to ear. I pulled the hair straight out. I used the tipping technique. So what that means is I took the hair flat. I'll tilt it this way so that you can see. I used the tipping technique, so from here, I used the corner of the blade and I just barely let it go through that layer of hair and remove a little bit of weight. And then I came across and cut my length. And as I worked, I pulled all that hair straight out. So all the hair from the side of the head came up and pivoted over. So what that's doing is it's allowing this hair down towards the ear to not only be over-directed forward, but also be elevated up. So I'm saving a lot of length and density here where it starts to get weaker over the ear, right? So symmetrical, everything pulled forward, cut to that same point. So that creates this short to long, rounded feel around the face. Then we went to the back. I took a central section right down the middle, high point of the head to the center of the hairline. Hair came straight out, and I cut short to long. So therefore I kept a lot of length that was already pre-existing, but I used the layering that we created on the front as a guide of length for the back. Stationary, so 2 went to 1, 3 went to 1, 4 went to 1, all in the middle, short to long. And then we just cleaned up the outline so it has a little bit of a nicer edge on it. And the end result you get from wet to dry, so that you don't have to watch me blow dry hair, which I'm slower at blow drying hair than I am cutting it, is you get an end result that's a bit layered around the face, and you get this invisible layering effect because we were able to put space in the hair and texturize it and remove weight as we cut it. So therefore I didn't have to go through it multiple times with scissors and a razor, and then scissors again, and then a razor again. So I was able to kind of get both jobs done at the same time. So super salon reality, super salon friendly, a shape that's relevant and a shape that's useful and suitable to anybody coming in post-COVID for a haircut. Cool?
Nice, looks really good. Got a lot of love. Everybody says it's really special. Beautiful haircut. Raina says hi. She has a little wave. Beautiful haircut. Love it. Very well explained. Very cool.
Good deal.
Cool.
Well, if you guys have questions, comments, concerns, contributions, throw them in the comments. Jump on Instagram if you're on that social platform. My name's Lucas Doney. Clinton's on the camera. Clinton cuts hair. Happy to be a part of it. Thank you guys for having us, tuning in. I know you could be anywhere else right now. We appreciate you being here and hanging out with us, and we hope that everybody stays safe, stays healthy, and we'll see you out there behind the chair soon.